Thanks for sticking around following our virtual presentation of the wonderful Before I Changed My Mind. My name is Nick McCarthy, and I'm the Director of Programming here at NewFest, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome back to the screen Director Trevor Anderson. Hi, Trevor.
Hi, Nick.
Congratulations again on this beautiful film, this beautiful, thorny, wild rye. So many adjectives just pop out to me. But first off, I want to ask and start from the beginning, honestly, of the film itself, actually. So it's 1987 Edmonton.
They go to Edmonton on the trip, but it's actually small town Alberta. There's confusion around that because the lawyers don't want me to say Red Deer, which is the small Alberta town I grew up in. But yeah, there you go.
Oh, I see. Oh, the mall's a big city scene then. Yeah, right?
Yeah, they go on the field trip to the big city. You got it.
But starting in the first scene at the gym too, basically like having the main character come in and then sit between the boys and the girls. Please tell me if that was always the way that this film was conceived, sort of as the opening. I'd love to chat a bit more about that too.
Yeah, I wanted to just get it out of the way at the start. Opening image, you know where you stand with that movie as soon as you see that. There's a different way to make this movie where that would be the end. The triumphant end of the movie is that Robin marches down the aisle and doesn't sit with the girls and doesn't sit with the boys and just takes up space alone. I feel like I've seen that movie in a way a lot, and so when I direct improv, I often say to the actors, like, if you think you know where a scene is going, start there. And so by starting with what could have been the end, it suddenly opens you up to, oh, all right, now what? Which was my experience of grade 8. Like, oh, all right, now what? Was kind of how it felt to be there. So I wanted the movie to feel like that too.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful too, because Robin, of course, is coming into this new space, from Washington State. And it's such an immersion into this world that you create. It feels at once kind of, thoughtfully, whimsically contrived, but also very real and wryly observed. And we talked a bit about, Robin and Robin's identity. Maybe there isn't a language for that in 1987. But beyond Robin, I love that you create a space for a lot of the characters to kind of feel fluid and a little queer, let's say, in a lot of ways. So I was wondering if you can talk about sort of the way you characterize this world building too.
Thank you so much for that. We thought, when I say we, I'm talking about my co-writer, Fish Krakowski. And we thought, if we're going to bring up, are you a boy or a girl, and never answer it, what are the versions of that for the other characters that we can get to? Like, is Carter gay? Is Carter bi? Is Carter straight? Is Izzy queer? Does Izzy like Carter or Robin? Or does liking Robin even make Izzy queer? Because we don't know exactly what's going on with Robin. But beyond that, it was also like, excuse me, the secretaries ask Daniel, the dad, are you a gay? And he doesn't answer. But he goes on the date with Annie, and there's a lot going on with Annie, but we never go into her backstory, like Tony. If you're Chinese, why is your name Tony? Oh, I'm not Chinese. In this very Chinese restaurant. And, which is real for a lot of people. A lot of Chinese restaurants are run by people of Asian descent who aren't Chinese. But we never got into like, okay, so what is Tony? We just looked for all of the ways to raise questions about people that never get answered within 89 minutes. Because that's like life too. Like, you meet someone, often there's tons you don't know, and you're just dealing with what's in front of you. And that's how I wanted the movie to be for everybody, not just for Robin.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, I just feel like you create this like beautiful world. It's kind of like a beginning start of like a Simpsons or something like that, even with like the colorful characters of this small town. And I'd love to hear too. I mean, of course, we're talking about this, but the casting, I think, must have been so on point in working with younger actors and such too. What was the process for casting or finding Vaughan? Because Vaughan as Robin is just, I think, the certain glue that pulls a lot of this together too.
I knew for sure that the movie would live or die based on the actor I found to play Robin. And so we did a Canada-wide casting search with a great casting director here named Jesse Griffiths. And as soon as we found Vaughan, I was like, okay, we've got a movie, you know? Because here's this kid who not only can present with a cryptic gender when they choose to, but beyond that surface level, here's an actor who the camera can see think, you know, and that is a rare thing in an actor, and the camera loves it, and I love it, and it's what you want in a movie is just like at one point a producer and I looked at each other during filming. We were watching the monitor and we were watching a close up on Vaughan, and I just turned to the producer and Allison and I said, we could do this whole movie in a close up on Vaughan. Like we could just do 89 minutes of close ups on Vaughan and have a movie. So that's a great gift for an actor to bring to a production, and we relied on it heavily. And then the rest of the casting, you know, I knew that very important would be the chemistry between Robin and Carter. So we also did a Canada-wide casting search, and we got Dominic Lippa out of Vancouver to play Carter. The rest of the kids, we had a very small budget, actually. We had, I feel like the whole crew did an amazing job of creating this illusion of a bigger budget than we actually had. This movie has no right to exist on the money we had, but
your resourcefulness right there, though.
Queer resourcefulness and good old, good old Alberta, barn raising mentality. So the rest of the kids we knew had to come from the province of Alberta because we weren't going to be able to travel in kids and guardians and put them up in hotels. They had to be able to sleep in their own beds at night. And all the rest of the kids we found in Alberta, just magnificent camera-ready kids auditioning. And Lacey Oak, who plays Izzy, actually...
I was just about to say, like, Izzy as well. I mean,
she's from Red Deer, and that's where I grew up. And so to find in my small town, this kid with that massive talent was a real kind of blessing to the film. It was a real spiritual oomph to get the magic right.
Yeah, no, it's just wonderful. And I feel like your film exudes just this kind of the silly joys of getting into trouble at that time too. Like there's nothing like that kind of like feeling too, of just like something like that. So, I feel like it's captured so well in the ensemble too. Like everyone seemed, comfortable with each other too. Like
we were so lucky because there wasn't a jerk in the bunch. If one of those kids had been a jerk, it would have tipped the energy. But because they were all sweet kids, so supportive of one another, the more challenging scenes, I think they felt safe that they could go out on a limb and try things that were outside of their comfort zone without thinking they were going to go back to the holding area and the other kids would sort of make fun of them, which can just kill a show. So I think they all were cheering for each other and they all were supporting each other. And I'm so lucky to have that group of kids. And like Tony, Justin, I was like, can I give you a giant red mohawk? I realize you're at an age where you may not want to be stuck with a giant red mohawk. And he was like, go for it, whatever, let's do it. It's not my mohawk, it's Tony's mohawk. Let's do it.
Yeah, I love when he shows up at the door with the mohawk. He's like, yes, we're not. I think Tony will have the last word.
Be like a world famous rock star. I think he probably heads up a band called the Marnolds.
Yeah.
And
he's a bassist, maybe.
Arcade Fire, that size band. And Fish and I talk about, like, in the next movie that we've written, we've got the Marnolds are actually sort of just breaking out. It's set in the 90s in Montreal. And so the Marnolds are the hot band of Montreal in the 90s. We just want to sort of track Tony as much as we can throughout the rest of our films.
I love it. No, because you created this world too. So I'm sure you can have like little pieces too to create like an
That's
overarching the Trevor Anderson metaverse. So speaking of, I love how you're able to create new things even within this film too. Of course, we have Mary Magdalene video star. Also, what is the Sabbath seed or
Satan Seedlings?
Satan Seedlings. Can you talk a bit about sort of coming up with these sort of like brief originals to like then
well, we couldn't afford Jesus Christ Superstar, literally that was the case. We were just thinking kind of small in a way and going, let's just have Jesus Christ Superstar. And then of course it was like, are you kidding? No, we can't have that. So then we sort of like had to, that became a great opportunity. It was like, okay, in that case, I'm going to play the community theater director named Trevor Anderson, who can't get the rights to Jesus Christ Superstar and is forced to write an original musical from Mary Magdalene's point of view. Instantly so much better. And same with Satan Seedlings. It was like, I was thinking, let's get Carrie by Brian De Palma. Let's just get Carrie. And of course we can't just get Carrie, but also then it became a wonderful opportunity to do this very queer thing and create our own Satan Seedlings. And I actually have one merch t-shirt that our graphic designer and the composer Lyle Bell made for me. Like, it's like a Satan Seedling shirt, as though that's the movie. And I wish I could have them mass produced. Maybe with this movie like crosses over, we'll mass produce those and you can get them at, I don't know. I was going to say Target, but I'm mad at them right now.
We'll do like Alamo Draft House, something like that.
Get them at the Alamo Draft House.
Yeah, when you're signing the distribution deal, you're like at the top, you're like merchandise of like Satan Seedlings.
Go straight to Vidiots at Eagle Rock in LA.
No, another good place to do that with,
But it reminded me of like, I think my favorite filmmaker is Pedro Almodovar from Spain. And in his early movies, he was always creating these fake commercials. So if a character was watching TV, there'd be like a fake commercial by Almodovar on the TV. And I loved them and they're special. And so it was a chance to kind of pick up on that energy.
Yeah, no, and I love sort of the variety it adds to it too. And even speaking of that, like going beyond, I find this like a very textured film. And I also love the sort of glimpses, I believe, in like VHS when Robin is, having some brief flashbacks. Can you talk about sort of incorporating those and that kind of, I love that story sort of exists off screen, but you get enough of a sense of it. So can you speak about that?
Thanks. Yeah, I was working with my editor, Justin Lachance, who, we've been working together since I think 2007 on my short film Dinks. He's been my longtime editor. We've really developed a voice together. But in the meantime, he's gone on to be like quite the hotshot. He has had a couple Emmy nominations for HBO's Big Little Lies and for Sharp Objects.
Okay.
And so that's a technique that he was working with the director Jean-Marc Vallée on, that they called thought cuts, where it's like, if you've seen those shows, there's just the briefest flash of what's going on in the character's head, and then you're back to the action, just fast, almost subliminal. And we thought this is a great way to, because I wanted a sense of Robin was coming from somewhere. I wanted a sense of Robin was coming from some kind of bad scene that was maybe influencing the decisions Robin's making now.
Yeah.
But I didn't, just the same way I didn't want a dramatic gender reveal scene, I also didn't want like a dramatic backstory reveal scene. So we found it was enough just to do these very fast thought cuts. I also didn't want the movie to know more than Robin knows. Like, one reason I don't want a gender reveal scene is because I don't think Robin has words. Mm-hmm. And so why should the movie know more than Robin? Same thing with the backstory. I think maybe Robin eventually, if Robin's lucky, gets into some therapy and unpacks how what was going on with mom influenced their pull to Carter, you know, and sort of fed into the codependency of that relationship. But if the movie starts in on that, like, no, the movie can start in on that in 20 years when Robin's in therapy, if that movie gets made. But right now, Robin's in it. And so the viewer should just be in it and making sense as best as one can, but not being handed the answers completed and, plated for your pleasure.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Like, it's more to put into the character itself. Like, I mean, even I think with like, the father, character as well, sort of as a single father, like, what he's going through. But yeah.
Like, what happened there? How did Daniel and Robin find themselves in Red Deer, Alberta? Like, that's more powerful as a question with some information, but not all of it.
Yeah. And being able to use the sort of VHS to play on that sort of like formal conceit as well, I think it's like a very cute
idea. It was a great way to smuggle in. We had a VHS camcorder, and I love shooting on VHS. So it was a good way to smuggle in that 80s format without doing 89 minutes on VHS.
Yeah, you even have those moments too of like the Polaroids too. I'm sure like on set, you're like, we're gonna have the best like behind the scenes kind of photos that you can incorporate in. So
yeah, it was great because my co-writer Fish is also a stills photographer. And so he just brought his Polaroid and he took some of them and we put the camera in Lacey's hands, and as Izzy, she took some of them. And the kids were all delighted, right? Because they were all fascinated by and delighted by the Polaroid. So
Yeah. And you alluded to sort of making shorts before. I know you've had roughly like a dozen or so. I know we've shown one or two, and and docking, which is quite a wild short, and also like Jesse Jams we showed too. And I'd love to hear sort of this is your debut feature. I mean, I feel like there's so much confidence in it, and it could come from all of your shorts. But I'm curious, sort of what was the biggest sort of like learning experience, or what was most surprising, like going from the short format to the feature length?
I made, as you say, like I spent about 15 years making shorts. I made about 12. And I wanted to make a feature, but I couldn't get my head around it. Like I had all these ideas for shorts and I didn't quite have ideas for features. And I was really down on myself about it. I should say, I don't think of shorts only as a stepping stone to features. Like
Yeah, no, yeah.
I'm not saying,
yeah.
But I think it's important to note that like, I love shorts and I hope I keep making shorts. And I think they can do things that features can't. But I did want to make a feature also. I just couldn't quite ever get to it. And then, so the lesson for me was like, you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
And when you're done, like, don't pretend like you did, which is why I'm always saying my co-writer, Vish Krakowski, and I, because suddenly working with a buddy made it like when I'm writing alone, a big project like a feature, I can only see what's not working. I can only see what's wrong with it. And it's much easier to stop when that's how you feel. But the minute I'm working, I'm a creature of the theater. I come from the theater. And so I like a collaborative workspace. I like creating, as a gang. And so suddenly when I'm working with my friend Fish, it's fun. And instead of focusing on what's not working, I'm focusing on what is working. And I'm like, let's pursue this. And I become more of a director. Like, let's focus on what's working and grow that. And the rest will fall away. Which somehow I can do as a director, but I can't do as a writer when I'm working alone. But so suddenly it became fun. And that was the biggest sort of growth moment for me going from shorts to features.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to hear just like the concept of collaboration and such too, that like I said, I feel like the dynamics like leap off the screen too, from like all the work y'all put together as an ensemble, both behind and in front of the camera too.
Thank you. It was a real group effort. There was a lot of people that made it happen.
Always is. Yeah. And I guess sort of bringing that from, all of this and coming to fruition, we're so excited to be able to share this again. Of course, the film world premiered at Locarno back in August. We had the US premiere in October, but I know you've been to a bunch of other festivals, whether queer or non-queer. And just curious, because I find this to be such a film that'll find its tribe like along the way. Even if they don't find it this year, they will find it down the line. I mean, I know I'll be recommending it and amplifying it. I'm curious, like within this first year, I know you've gone to a couple festivals. Has there been any sort of particular story or response from someone in the audience afterwards that came up to you that they shared that really resonated or like brought everything kind of full circle, I'd say, as this, baby goes out into the world?
I think what immediately leaps to mind and actually gave me goosebumps when I was thinking about it was not an individual person, but rather like the Philadelphia Film Festival gave it a high school screening. And they bust in all these high schools. And it played in 2 theaters at once because there were so many kids. There were just hundreds of high school kids. And I thought, okay, well, trial by fire, here we go. I'm going to find out what I have on my hands today. Because they are going to tell me the truth. And I was so heartened and delighted to, experience their not only acceptance of the film, but their like championing of it. Like, I feel like they really dug it. And they were saying things to me like, thank you for casting kids actors who were the right age for the characters. And anyone who knows kids today knows that there's like a gender cornucopia going on in the high schools. So the kids don't need this explained to them. And I think they were kind of grateful that we didn't get into gender 101 and we just went, here's Robin, you know what's going on with them in the first couple scenes. And now they have to navigate the dangerous social climate of grade 8. And I feel like those those kids gave me the boost of confidence I needed to know that, okay, well, if the kids are all right with it, then I feel really good.
Oh, that sounds so brilliant. It must have been a magical screening to attend for all. So
it was when I was like in theater, I used to always go to the student matinees, especially for Shakespeare or something like that. If I would always go to the student matinees, because you can absolutely know the moment you've lost the audience, and you know the moment you get them back. And so it's a really great audience barometer is a student matinee.
Well, I'm sure that like everyone was so loud, and it was like an electric kind of like loud. We do high school screenings, and like the response, that you hear sometimes is just like booming, and it's like they're such, great audiences. So
yeah, I love the kid crowds.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. All right. Well, I'm glad that it's reaching audiences, young, old, everywhere in between. We have run out of time, but I want to thank you again, Trevor Anderson. And I can say, at least for me, and I'm sure all of the NewFest community, that we can't wait to see the next film from the wonderful world of Trevor Anderson. So, so congratulations again, and excited to see what's next.
Thank you so much for having us back, Nick.
Thanks.